Ladies and gentlemen, Trevor is Chief Pilot and Chief Flying Instructor with the Royal Air Club. He's been to America, he's flown all around the world, delivering and picking up light aircraft, a wealth of experience. So this is going to be another one of his stories on how he flew across America from the West Coast to the Oshkosh Air Show. So Trevor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Just as way of a further introduction, as Brian said, I'm the Chief Flying Instructor of the Royal Aero Club. The Royal Aero Club at the moment is going through quite a boom. We have got a load of students, which is fantastic for us. At the moment we've got a course of 8 instructors going through a course. We normally do 3 at a time. At the moment we're in the middle of a course of 8. And at the same time that we're doing that, there's been a load of new regulations that have come in through CASA. We applied for what was called a Part 142 transition last year, and we said that we wanted that done by September. Which they thought was a little bit ambitious. There's a reasonable amount of work to do. They came back to us and said to get it through by September we had to have the paperwork done by July, which was a bit of work. About a month ago they said, you're going to be the first ones that do it. If you get the paperwork to us by the end of March, we'll push it through. So if I appear a little bit haggard, there's a couple of reasons for it. So a fantastic aeroplane on the screen, and as Brian's presentation pointed out, that there are a lot of Air Force museums around the United States. I've been in this area a number of times before, and I'd seen a sign that said to the Castle Air Force Museum out in the middle of paddocks in California, and I'd never bothered to go there. The last time I was there I thought I'll drive up and see what's there, and this is what greets you at the front gate, so there's some fantastic things around. When I was flying in the States, I took the opportunity to get an American license. It is possible to get validations of Australian licenses in the United States, but it's also extremely easy just to convert an Australian license to an American license. The only thing I had to do was make an appointment to go into the FAA, take my license and give it to them, and they gave me an American one back. It's quite interesting to note that they charged nothing for that. The only fee that I had to pay was for CASA to send my qualifications from here to them. However, they did make the process very easy. They did make me go through similar sorts of things that we do here, doing a flight review, doing a test to make sure I could speak English. Even though my license said that I was an English assessor, I still had to prove to them that I could speak English to be understood there. However, they do make the process very simple. I did plan to go to Oshkosh, and I hadn't had any idea of where I was going to go, apart from starting in California and finishing in Wisconsin for Oshkosh. So I started off with a blank map and decided to work out a flight plan from there. First thing I did was to have a look at some places that might be interesting to go to. So I was being a tourist when I had a look at all of these. So the Hoover Dam, Grand Canyon, San Francisco. I just had a look at some interesting places that would be good to see from the air, easy to get to, and again, just planned on from there. As with a lot of pilots these days, I've got an iPad that's got flight planning software, and the flight planning software that's available in America is pretty much the same as what we've got here. So I've started off with my iPad and made this flight plan. The good thing about using the iPad is that I actually planned it from here. All of this was done in my office or at home before I got there, so I had a reasonably good idea of where I was going to go. It was also interesting to see just in the bottom there, we've got weather, up-to-date weather that also goes onto the map. Obviously this was when I was sitting here planning it, so it didn't help from that stage, but when I was actually flying there, you could get up-to-date weather all throughout the flight. So I started off in Modesto in Northern California. It's not very far from San Francisco. And unfortunately the purple line is all a little bit simplistic because all of these other little lines, the straight lines and the blue lines, are restricted airspace, things that we have to negotiate around, and things that we don't see very much around here, fairly high mountains. So even though there's a straight line on the map going from Modesto to Las Vegas, it wasn't actually exactly that straightforward. Other things that we don't see on our charts around here are lower safe altitudes at that altitude. I was flying a Cirrus, a naturally aspirated Cirrus without oxygen, so obviously areas in there I had to be extremely cautious about as well. Again, the number of restricted airspaces, the types of mountains around there, and the weather at the time are all things that have to be taken into account, but all made very simple with an iPad with a flight planning system on it. The other things that are available are online flight planning systems. We've got NAPES in Australia. There's 3 or 4 different ones in the States. One called Duats, one called Flight Plan, and a couple of others. Again, they make it very easy to log on for free, just submitting flight plans, getting any information that's needed for the flight made very easily. So now I'm going to play tourist a little bit and just sort of see what some of the scenery is around now. I didn't know what to expect really, apart from some of those destinations I showed earlier on, but mountain flying is something that we don't do a lot of, especially on the west coast, and just some of the actual conditions that go to do with mountain flying. You might be able to see just in there, this is at about 9,000 feet, and these people are using this area in there to cultivate. So it's something again that we don't see a lot of around here. The mountains that we do see on the east coast are all quite desolate. I think this is for Australians who might have got lost, but they do give guidance along the way, but some very rugged terrain on the way to Las Vegas. This is Las Vegas and Las Vegas International Airport. Those of you that fly around Perth and have had the extended delays trying to get into Perth will have heard the stories about how easy it is in the States just to fly directly over the top of an international airport. You don't need to put any flight plans in or anything. They give you a clearance if you just call up and ask if you can go through, and that's what they did in this case. I actually went into the airport at North Las Vegas, which is a similar distance to Jandakot to Perth, and the international airport was just on the other side of Las Vegas. Very close to here is also the Nellis Air Force Base, so there was a lot of Air Force traffic at the same time, as well as the lighties at this airport, and just over the other side the international airport. The Grand Canyon had been a place that I'd wanted to go for a long time. I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be like from the air, how much I'd be able to see, but when I got there, absolutely everything is there for you to see. The airport that's very close to here actually takes off. I think this is taking off from the Grand Canyon Airport. It's a better view than any of the paid viewing areas that were actually at the canyon itself. That's the aeroplane I was flying. It was an SR22, an SR22 Cirrus, and parked at the Grand Canyon Airport. Grand Canyon Airport is about 4,000 feet, and it was well into the over 110 degrees Fahrenheit when I arrived there. So most of the runway was taken in taking off. And I did extend the takeoff a little bit so that I could fly over the canyon. I did spend a little bit of time on the ground and was keen to go on this observation platform, but when I went there, they wanted an extra $50 to go out on that, so I decided not to do that. Once again, just back this way towards me is where the airport is, so my takeoff was directly towards this observation platform. And it's probably just under the wing there. There was lots of traffic around there. There's probably half a dozen helicopters doing scenic flights in and out of the canyon, so it was quite busy. There was a number of places I would have liked to have gone a bit closer to. Hoover Dam was one of them, but the amount of GA traffic going in and out just made it seem a little bit too busy for me. This is Lake Powell, just inside. It's still in the Grand Canyon National Park, but it's amazing scenery, and I just couldn't get over what it was like, and it always amazes me. Anytime we fly, the different perspective that we get from the air always adds something to it. So seeing that amount of water in a completely desolate, rocky sort of area is amazing. And again, the ground elevation there is about 4,000 feet. I'm not a geologist, but that sort of formation that would have been made out of a glacier travelling through there however many millions of years ago really shows how easy it is for geologists to see those types of features. And this flight, taking off from the Grand Canyon and going over this area, it was about 3 hours of this type of scenery. I was just clicking away the whole time. It was the middle of summer, but with high mountains, there was still snow around. And this is a bit of an indication of the mountains to come. I'm heading east at this stage towards the middle of the country, and of course the Rockies to come across. I'd much rather see this view of it than having a walk around on the ground and trying to map out where these rivers and things go. But again, I can appreciate the way geologists would see that and explain how it was created. This is a place called Grand Junction. This was the highest airport that I landed at. This is 9,000 feet elevation, and it's just before the Rockies. So you can see a nice long runway there. You can imagine that piston engine aeroplanes have a little bit of trouble there, so it was probably about 3/4 of the distance of this runway that I used for landing and taking off. Everybody's heard stories about how friendly the airports are in the States. Every airport that I went to, whether it be reasonably large or reasonably small, offered to lend me a car so that I could drive into town and have lunch and do those sort of things. So they're very hospitable, make it very easy. And this is going towards the Rockies. From Grand Junction, I was going to Denver. I was landing at Centennial Airport, which is just south of the main airport. I've only just recently found out that Centennial Airport, where I landed, is actually the home of Jepsons as well. I missed out on seeing them. Again, different sort of scenery than we see here in Australia. Mountain ranges that just keep coming up and keep coming up are great to fly over and see. But you'll note here, I'm at 13,500 feet to get over these little hills. And that was the highest point that I came to. Crossing that ridge, I'm at 13,500. I think that's probably at 13,000. So it was interesting to see. I didn't have oxygen on this trip. The time that I had to spend to get over that was about 10 minutes, so it wasn't worth taking for that. And there's lots of get-out areas as well. If I turned around, there's flat areas behind to get down to a lower altitude, the same if I went forward. Unfortunately, going forward, there was also that little cloud there, and rainstorms and clouds and thunderies around the Rockies don't really turn me on, so I did give that a wide berth, as you can imagine. There are lots of what look like major airports around. I've got no idea what this one's called, but you can be flying along and look down and see a massive concrete runway, probably used for the Air Force during the Second World War, that are still maintained as regional airports. And again, you know, they use them for general aviation, and they use them for whatever they can. But any time it's a general aviation airport, always friendly and helpful. I had planned to fly into Appleton, which is just north of Oshkosh. The reason I did that is I wasn't spending the whole week at Oshkosh, so I didn't want to try and fly in there in the middle of the week. Appleton, which isn't the main airport in the area, obviously Oshkosh is, but still there was about 3,000 aeroplanes parked at Appleton. Me thinking that Oshkosh was going to be a little bit busy, the controllers gave me a clearance to fly directly over the top of Oshkosh. I think I was at 3,000 feet. There was the Confederate Air Force aeroplanes flying over the top of me, display aeroplanes happening underneath, and they guided me into Appleton. This isn't Appleton, by the way, this is just another regional strip. After I left Oshkosh heading west, I took almost the same route, but just went to a couple of slightly different places, and one of these was Salt Lake City on the way back west. Again, you have to cross the Rockies, but it's only about 10,000 feet at this stage, so that isn't too bad. But it's quite an interesting approach into Salt Lake City. You go over the Rockies at 10,000 feet, as we are here. And all of a sudden you have to come down the other side, lose about 6,000 feet, and the runway is very close to the edge of the mountains. So you can imagine it was a fairly large orbit out over that lake to get back into that airstrip. There's also a lot of Air Force strips that are really close to the regional strips. Sometimes the Air Force shares the airspace with a city aerodrome, but all the time when you're flying around, especially close to the regional strips that are shared by the Air Force, you'll see F-18s and things flying fairly close to you. Obviously you don't want them too close to you, but they're a fairly common sight to see those reasonably close. You can see where the name of Salt Lake City came from. So again, these are purely indulgent, scenic photos, but a unique perspective that we get from aeroplanes. And again, it's our privilege of being able to see scenery from this sort of angle. I flew into Reno, Nevada. I'm actually on finals on this shot, and there's a hotel on the left-hand side of the approach. Something that missed out on the right-hand side is another hotel there, which has the approach going between the two hotels, which makes it interesting. And taking off from Reno, on the other side of that particular feature, the Sierra Nevadas, is Lake Tahoe. And there is Lake Tahoe. Off the top of my head, I think Lake Tahoe's elevation is 8,000 feet, so again we had to climb up to 11 or 12,000 feet to get over that. While I was there, I took the opportunity to get a float plane endorsement as well. This was at the base of the Sierra Nevada mountains, just inside Northern California, and this lovely little Piper. I was able to do a float endorsement there on the American license that they'd just given me, and the 6 lessons, or 6 hours, and the flight test cost $2,000. And this isn't a long time, this is 2 years ago, so it's not as if it's a long time ago. The guy that I went with was quite interested in bush type flying and mountain type flying, so we did a little bit of canyon flying as well, which was good fun.
You say so.
and actually aiming down at a lake and being able to land in it is a fantastic experience. It's probably a bit of a different story later. And there we are back at the Castle Air Force Museum. So it was indulgence. It was looking at scenery, it was enjoying flying, it was all made very easy by the system they have there, the backup that they have for general aviation. Fuel is a reasonable price, the aeroplanes were a reasonable price. In total, I flew for about 33 or 34 hours, and it cost me just over $6,000. I shouldn't be advertising rates that aren't Aero Club rates, however it was a good value holiday and a fantastic thing to do. It is very easy to do, so if you have the opportunity to do it, take it up. You do have to do your homework with paperwork a little bit beforehand. There is more concerns for terrorist activities and that sort of thing, but again, they do make it very easy. I'd highly recommend it. Thank you very much.